Hello. Okay, cool. I was futzing with settings right before this, and I see that I have already, there we go. Okay, I've made it go away. Please let me know if you can see and hear me because I am not 100% that I didn't break something. Okay, B says can see and hear, and that it is also 100 degrees. I am sorry. I am sorry. We had rain this weekend, well, like quite a lot of rain, while everyone else in the United States was pretty much having like his unseasonably or early hot weather. Um and yes. So now it's like a very reasonable like 78 Fahrenheit outside. So I'm sorry. I'm sure we're gonna get hit soon. 78 Fahrenheit is like 26-ish Celsius, I think. Hello everybody. I actually really, one, if you can hear sawing, I'm sorry. They are working on the house, so we're not gonna stop them. Uh, I thought that, there were a lot of topics to talk about. There's obviously been a lot of news. I love it when I am going to bed and then I find out we've gotten involved in another war. There's been a lot of news this week, but all of this news is kind of part of this overall economic pattern that's happening right now, which is that markets hate uncertainty and businesses don't really invest if they don't understand what's going to happen tomorrow. And a lot of that is a result of the United States president's actions and kind of the chaotic trade policies he's been implementing, and the like, we're doing it and then we're not doing it and blah, 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 blah. But there are a lot of other geopolitical things that are happening as well that are having a cooling effect on economies around the world. It's not just the United States economy. Like, we are projected to have a less cooling than some other countries are. So like the Eurozone area is predicted to, it's only going to have a slight increase. So it's going to be like 0.8% growth is now maybe going to go up to 1% are the revised estimates. And when I refer to these estimates, there are it's a big business predicting how the economy is going to do, because obviously you can make money if you make proper predictions. But there are three main data sources that, like, non-governmental organizations or governmental organizations that I rely on for predictive data. They are the World Bank, the OECD, which is the Organization of Economic and Cooperation Development, I think is what it stands for. I just call it a club of rich countries, which I think I cribbed from The Economist. So, like, anytime I use a weird phrase, it's probably from The Economist. And the world. So I said the World Bank, the OECD, and then there's some kind of like other global predictors that come from the Morgan Stanley, which is a global bank. They actually do a pretty good report on global economic prospects that I think is written really well in plain language. So those tend to be like my, I guess, favorite places to start when we're looking at it. And then there's a UN Global Economic Outlook report that will kind of give various stats. So one of the big factors that's happening right now that's leading to volatility that is making firms not want to invest is the situation that's happening in the Middle East. And which situation? All of them. The massive amount of instability in that region that's happening right now, US's involvement or not, means that we're seeing a lot of volatility in oil prices, and oil being the most important commodity in the world at this point, as we're still reliant on fossil fuels to make a whole lot of things and to move goods around the world. Oil prices, in addition to being their own commodity, they also impact the outlook of many other types of financial instruments, and they impact organizations' ability to invest in the future, right? So when we talk about like predicting global economic indicators, and when we look at like, is a country or a region's economy expected to grow, there's a ton of different factors that they use when they attempt to figure that out. Like when they sit there with their Bloomberg terminals and all of the various data sources that data analysts at these large firms or these NGOs put together, one of the things that they are looking at is predictions about the price of the commodity of oil. And just in the past 4 days, for reasons that I'm sure you can figure out if you've been following the news, the price of oil has been doing loop-de-loops. And when the price of oil, so recently it's fallen again. And this happens when you have a oil-producing country and an oil-producing region, which is primarily the Middle East, that if you have an oil-producing region and there are wars happening, if there is bombing happening, then there is a expectation that the supply of oil is going to be impacted. While they might not be, there might not be war directly in maybe one of the regions where they're extracting oil. There are going to be trade routes that are impacted. There is possibly longer transport times for oil tankers because they are going to now have to avoid certain areas because of war activity. You even sometimes see targeting of oil tanker ships by, whatever the adversary might be, depending on the flag that is flying. So, and you have to also remember that quite a few of the entities that are invested in oil are state-owned entities of states that are, if they are not directly involved in the conflict, they are highly affected by the conflict in the Middle East, right? So if you want to do a historical analysis, which is crazy to think that it's historical now, but like part of the reason that the US, looking back, hindsight is 2020, part of the reason the US got involved in the war in Iraq was, and started it, was because of oil. That's what historical analysis can give us. And obviously there was a lot of bad intel or bad PR marketing that contributed to that war. We are not going to dive into that because that's a whole can of worms. But when we look at this, there are many state governments that are drawn into this conflict, providing support, or at the very least are border countries that are heavily invested in oil. So, of course, if there is a active new war happening in that region versus the, low grade, maybe fighting that was happening for a while, like obviously we've seen a Hezbollah, Israel kind of low grade conflict happening for a while, but this escalation against Iran from Israel with then the US getting involved, that has a huge impact on oil prices because it's an oil producing region. So even if like most of the oil in that region is coming out of Saudi Arabia, that's going to affect trade routes. So then people are like, oh, well, if the supply of oil is going to be impacted, then we are going to bid up the price of oil. Maybe people are buying futures, and then the cost of futures is going up because they have the expectation that oil is going to get more expensive on a 1 month, a 6 month, or a 1 year timescale. There isn't as much storing of oil as you would think, right? So the extraction methods, the earth stores the oil, but humans cycle through it at a pretty fast clip relative to when it's extracted after it's processed. So we don't actually have like massive reserves of oil that's happening. And part of that is because it can be, in fact, a risk to have large stores of oil, because oil is, in addition to a thing catch on fire, it would be a very good thing to target for an adversary. So if you're in a region, even if you produce oil as a state, you might not have huge oil reserves. So I'm getting off track here. I just went. What I have to say, we now see the price since the ceasefire was implemented yesterday. We now see a 6% drop in the prices of oil after they shot up over the weekend. And that is a great indicator of like, it is really hard for firms to do business. Like, it is hard for small businesses to exist in this like wild tariff environment, and like individual businesses. And it is in many ways even harder for large firms to do this because large firms are less agile than small businesses. Small businesses can be like, well, I've got one major supplier in China, and if China gets tariffed, I will pivot to this other country. Obviously, with uncertainty, that has made things really hard and if you don't have access to a ton of capital, if you're a small business, it can be harder to pivot because obviously you don't have as big of reserves. But big companies are not agile. They plan in much longer timelines. Like if you look at like fast fashion as a industry, it is called fast fashion, but like that like projection and the idea of how much they are like going to be serving, on the shortest end, when we're looking at like Zara and Shein, which are some of like the fastest fast fashion scale brands, they can do it in like a month. But generally, that like a large retail behemoth that works in the fashion industry is looking 24 to 36 months out when they are predicting how much stock that they are going to sell, when they are investing in new facilities and manufacturing. They cannot pivot as quickly as a smaller firm can. And if you are like, I don't know how much oil is going to cost in 6 months, I don't have any idea what the global trade situation is going to be like in 6 months, then you don't want to take risks as a business. And what we need firms to do is to invest in resources, right? You need investment in the manufacturing and the research and development. That's what leads to economic growth, right? So if you have an expectation of economic growth in an economy, you need the kind of environment where firms can feel confident in making investments in the future, in hiring and firing labor. Like, you could just see it in your local restaurant. Like, if they don't know if all of the food costs are going to be double next month because we're going to implement an 150% tariff on goods coming from, Cuba, and Cuba's a terrible example in the United States. Colombia, let's say a coffee shop is like, doesn't know if the price of their coffee is going to double next month because trade policies are like back and forth. Then they might not be out there hiring a new barista. They might not be out there hiring a new bar manager because they're like, I'm just going to wait and see because I don't know if our baseline expenses are going to go up. I don't know if I need to change the menu. And the other, like, we call it menu costs in economics, which is the cost to change prices has real cost associated with it. If you are increasing cost, it's not just a supply and demand thing. Let's say you're Coca-Cola and you have decided to raise, like, Coke costs more because we've put a tariff, an import tariff on sugar, because sugar is mostly not grown in the United States. And sugar is an essential ingredient in your beverage. Coke might not be a great example because I think it's mostly corn, which is mostly grown in the US here. But let's say sugar, whatever item that you need to make your thing. So you've decided you're going to raise the cost of a bottle of Coke from $1.29 to $1.59. And to do that, that involves sending out, that involves like the labeling and information that goes to all of your end caps at all of the grocery stores. That involves communicating that to all of your stockists. That involves updating database systems. That involves like all sorts of recost calibration. It might involve a new marketing campaign. If you are, for example, going to do shrinkflation because your costs have gone up, but you don't want to raise the sticker price of it because you're worried you'll lose consumers. So instead, you're going to keep the price at $1.29, but you're going to move from a 12 ounce to a 10 ounce bottle. That involves this whole extra cost in acquiring, producing the new bottles, maybe retrofitting machinery in order to load those bottles. Like, there are so many transactional costs to all of this. So what we have going on right now, we have a hell of a lot of stress happening right now. So geopolitically, we've got many conflicts going on in the Middle East right now, many of which are in or adjacent to oil-producing countries. Oil is a really big input on the global world. So you've got firms in rich countries unwilling to invest in production or research and development because there's too much uncertainty. So they're kind of like in a wait and see sort of situation. Additionally, right now, what you have happening in Europe is this whole renegotiation of NATO that's happening right now, where they are trying to ask like countries in NATO to increase their military spending to 5% of gross domestic product. A lot of the countries that are like would be on the hook for that have been trying to meet a 2% target for years and are nowhere near it. So we're talking about a even greater investment from the state into the military, which is maybe flying to contractors, but usually in a lot of these countries, they tend to be state-owned enterprises. And so you also have all of this uncertainty right now about like, oh, where is that investment going to go? How are we going to funnel that in? Do we try to raise GDP to do this? And obviously there is a interest in NATO countries right now in making sure that they are militarily prepared because of Russia's attack on Ukraine. Because Russia's attack on Ukraine and that ongoing war have made a lot of European countries feel less stable about their own safety. So I don't even want to get into the South China Sea, but shit's happening in the South China Sea. And the like final thing that I think is really important when it comes to the richest, biggest developed countries in the world, developing countries actually have better economic outlooks right now than developed countries do. And developed countries generally grow at a much slower rate, right? If you already have a big economy, your percentage growth is going to be smaller overall because you have a big economy. But also, it's a lot easier to make big leaps and bounds if you're a poor country and you get some level of investment. You can really like bring up GDP and hopefully per capita income very quickly. There's a lot of opportunities for research and development. And additionally, you don't have to go through that kind of phase and testing area of research and development. So there's this general theory in macroeconomics called convergence theory, but a great example would be like cell phones. So a lot of under-resourced countries in the world and the global south like never really developed a super stable landline network, right? Like they just didn't have great telephone access, especially in rural areas of different underdeveloped countries. So what convergence theory says is that one of the things that happened is that you can leapfrog technology. So you can have these like really big gains. And that did happen with mobile phone technology. Essentially, you went from having rural parts of the country who like did not have any landlines put in. There was not that kind of infrastructure for telecommunications put in. And then when it became, hey, you can just pop up a tower and then everybody can have access to not only phone, but internet in a lot of cases, that became very quick. It became a cheap, fast investment. And so you saw like a really heavy investment in that. So that's one of the reasons that developing countries tend to grow at a faster rate. Smaller economies, higher rate of growth, right? When it's a percentage, but also because they are able to have faster technological progress because they tend to do less of the initial R&D phase, right? There's also this thing called comparative advantage, which I've explained in other live streams, but I don't know how much we want to get into that. But, all right, I have been just talking. I've just been talking. If anybody is in New York City watching this right now, go vote for Zoran. You have until 9 p.m. I'm not in New York City. I'm just invested. I cannot believe how many people are invested in the New York City election that are not in New York City compared to like normal. I feel like this year it's like way more invested. Rural says it's also hot there. Jackie said, shout out to my French teacher who said that we went to war for oil in 2007. She was as cool as hell. I definitely I think we were saying that when I was in high school, which is earlier than 2007. So. What's the email address for Floof of the Week? It's questions at ohmydollar. Questions at ohmydollar.com. I also hate autocorrect has been getting significantly worse on my iPhone too, and I don't know what's going on with it. I do a lot of voice to text, and the voice recognition I feel like has been getting worse. Is it just because people hate Cuomo? I'm just curious. I'm waiting for the general. I think I think it has a lot to do with hating Cuomo. I think his endorsement by Bill Clinton did not help him either. But yes, I do also think that Zoran is like a very, he's easy to like, at least from afar. I do think that like mayor is like the least fun job. Everyone eventually ends up hating their mayor in every city. David says, I'm an independent. I hate all politicians, at least in the abstract, not the definite. I mean, I think that's true of a lot of people. David says, what did I miss? Well, pretty much all you missed was me ranting about global instability for 20 minutes. We have a donut. Should we eat the donut as a palate cleanser after I ranted about global economic slowdowns? Does anybody have any specific questions about a lot of the predictions that are coming out? I have some numbers. If we want to read some numbers from the OECD report, if you have any questions about why the predictions are global slowdowns. So this is predicted to, outside of recessions, be the slowest global growth since the 1960s. It is truly, which is a long time ago now, actually. It's 85 years ago. So outside of recessions, right? So recessions are 2 consecutive quarters of the economy shrinking. So negative economic growth. These are still predicting economic growth, but much slower than we've come to expect from developed countries. David says, I could use some advice on balcony decoration and usage. I mean, have at it. I don't know if I'm going to have any great advice, but I'm sorry that you had to get a new balcony, though. But that was the only part that needed replace, because I was worried, like, if the balcony, it was going to, like, you were going to open it up and find out all the beams for the whole house were totally screwed. Didn't vote since I've been independent, but though I have my concerns about a 33-year-old running New York City, Cuomo is morally corrupt. I am very curious about, a 33-year-old running a city of 8.8 million people with, like, how many unions involved with the city. I think there's like the haulers union, there's a city employees union. I don't know. It does seem like a lot, but really it's got to be better than what you have right now. Like that's very corrupt. So Cheryl says, I have a Pinterest page for balconies, so that might be who you need to refer to. When will the effects of the tariffs take hold? We don't know. Nobody knows because the tariffs keep getting changed. They say they have a deal, but then it's not a real deal. So we really don't know because there's like such a rotating situation. Like initially they were supposed to happen on February 1st, but then like some of them got paused for 90 days and then some of them got paused at a like different rate. And then China had its own special one. And there's also different tariff rates for different things. So it's very unclear. We technically have 2 weeks to go since the 90-day pause went into effect. So on, I think it's July 1. July 1? July 1. I think it's July 1. Is that 90 days? It's around July 1. But we're extremely close to like when the tariffs are supposed to go into effect. But it sounds like everybody is expecting a deal to be made, but also a deal is supposed to be made with every single country. So there is a very strong expectation that the end of the pause is going to come and we are going to be markets are going to be panicking again because markets panicked in response to the United States getting involved in the war in Iran. And then when the ceasefire happened, the markets kind of like rebounded a little bit. But then now we're like a week out from them starting to panic if it doesn't look like progress is being made on a deal for the tariffs. I think it's time for a donut, y'all. I'm excited about this one. I don't think we've had this one before. If we have had it, it's been quite a long time. So this is Talking Dough and Eating Donuts, and we just talked about economics, so I guess it's time to eat a donut. Okay, look at this. Look at this boy. Also, sorry about my overhead camera not working very well this time. This is strawberry shortcake. So it has strawberry glaze with real strawberries, little strawberry bits, and then that's pie crust dotting it around. And it's just a regular raised donut there. It smells so strawberry-y. We are fully in berry season here in Portland. It's great. We have so many berries in Oregon. It's lovely. Oh my gosh. B, probably you aren't seeing the chats because you have top chat selected instead of all chats. It's at the top of your chat window. This is like, it tastes like a strawberry candy, but then it's fluffy. It's so good. There's just the perfect amount of crunch on there. I feel like it's a very simple donut to our normal donuts, but it's really good. Mmm. Oh, my mom pointed out I did my math wrong. It is not 85 years since 1965. It's 65. I know what I'm doing. The people born in the 1960s care. Okay. This might have been a perfect donut. It was light. It was fruity. It had like the pie crumbles gave it a little bit of texture. It was sweet, but not too sweet. I'm gonna say 5 out of 5, which is, I think, 2 weeks in a row of a 5 out of 5. But like, I have no notes. I don't think you could improve that donut. Did I gave a 5 out of 5 to the bacon praline last week. But I honestly, which is funny because I don't even like strawberry shortcake that much. I like strawberries though. 5 out of 5. Oh no, don't say getting a streak going because I tend to get obsessed with streaks. I did hit a exciting streak this week. I hit 200 straight weeks of ice skating rinks, which has involved some doing when I've been traveling, especially in countries without a lot of ice skating rinks. Well, Winter, the tax man is not here, so that's why the tax man is not getting any, but I'm glad that the tax man wasn't here because that was delicious and I wanted to eat the whole thing. Eric says 200 weeks is no small thing. I agree. It's also 200 weeks at like sports and recreation. But that means that I've gone to the gym and the skating rink every week for 200 weeks. It would have been longer if the pandemic hadn't happened, but rinks were closed for a long time in Oregon. like a really long time, and I mainly skated a rink at a mall. Um, the frustrating part is, so we have 4 rinks in the Portland metro area. There's only actually 1 in the city of Portland, and the other 3 are in the suburbs. 1 is in Vancouver, Washington, which is like the next state over. That's the main one that I go to when I go. 1 is in Beaverton, which is like a very close-in suburb of Portland. And then 1 is in Sherwood, which is like quite a far suburb of Portland. It's still like in the Portland metro area, but it's like 20 miles out. So, right now, oh, and then there's 2 other rinks in Oregon, like main rinks in Oregon. One of them is in Eugene, which is about 2 hours away from Portland, and they close every summer now. And then the other one is in Medford, and it is year round. But Medford is like a 5 to 6 hour drive from Portland, so it's not like practical. I mean, the one in Eugene is like, it's not really practical to like come up here, but people do come up in the summer to train. So anyway, wow. I don't know if you guys heard that, but there was some sort of tool outside and it really scared the cat and she is very unhappy with it. It's okay, Machka. Come here. Come here. Come here. It's okay. Okay. So my point being, so I mainly skate at this little dinky rink, and on Mondays, my day off, I will try to go up to the rink in Vancouver so I can skate on a properly sized cold rink. The rink in the mall has a magnifying glass for the sun above the ice rink, so it tends to get extremely melty in the summer, and it can really like give you a headache because the sun will shine, but you're going in and out of like the sun and the shade depending on where the sun is. And it's a small rink. Now, it feels really small this week because the rink in Vancouver is closed for maintenance for 3 weeks, and the rink in Beaverton, which is the other close-in suburb, is also closed for like a refresh, maintenance, whatever. So we have all of the skaters from Mountain View and from Winterhawks coming to train at our tiny little ice rink, little puddle of an ice rink in the summer. And the skaters from Eugene are now out of school, so like they're coming up to train as well. Medford is also not a friendly place. I think there are friendly people there. But yes. Giovanni says, how did I manage a skating rink in Thailand? I went to this skating rink that was on the 11th floor of a mall in Bangkok. And then I went to one on the bottom floor of a mall in Vietnam. And when I was in New Zealand, I was there in July. So they had a ice rink in Auckland for the Maori New Year. Which was really cool. It was terrible ice, but it was super cool. They had like an ice slide on it too, and there were lights, and it was open till like midnight. And it was like right next to our hotel. What other countries have I done the ice rink at? In Wien, there was like it was amazing outdoor ice rink, but we were there in the winter. I went to an ice rink in Finland that was like a loop. It was so cool. It had like an outdoor skating loop track. We were there in like December in Finland, so everything was an ice rink. They like just flood the soccer fields in Helsinki with water and they freeze, and people just use them as like ice skating rinks in the winter there because it's so cold. Southeast Asia has the goods. Yes, where was it that I struggled? So, and then when I was on the bus trip for work, I went to the rink in Klamath Falls. But I didn't actually get a skate. I just had to go to the rink and check in and see it. But it was such a cool rink, but it was melted down for the summer. It had just closed it was opening like the week later, so it was annoying. Oh yeah, and I also did ice skating on a cruise ship when I was on a cruise for an ice rink. Anyway, so there's my 200-week streak at ice skating rinks. I hope I get to enjoy the apartment for a little while. My boss decided to send me back to Bulgaria. How long are you going to be in Bulgaria for? But also, that sounds kind of cool. I don't know. I feel like not many people go to Bulgaria for work. But you've already been to Bulgaria for work? I don't know. That sounds kind of exciting to me. But it would be annoying to spend all this of your free time working on this apartment and not actually get to enjoy it. Do they pay for your housing when they send you, like, for these long stretches to countries? Because I know you went to the Philippines and you were there for like 3 months, right? I'm assuming they pay for your housing. Do you get tax-free? I can't believe they sent you to Bulgaria in the winter of 2020. I feel like, were the borders even open yet? Or was it before the virus? Giovanni says Bulgaria is cheap. Yeah, I don't know if it's as cheap as it once was, though. They're still not in the EU, though, right? They're in the EEA. I don't think they're in the EU. It is a member of the EU. It joined at the same time as Croatia. Interesting. I didn't actually realize that it had fully joined the EU. I thought it was part of the EEA. They don't have a very robust economy. And they're not part of the Eurozone. I know that. I don't think that they are allowed to adopt the euro yet, technically. Although, I mean, the Eurozone has let in a lot of countries. But I think they have too much debt to join the... But that... I mean, Greece should never have been allowed in the Eurozone. But they made Croatia do so much work to join the Eurozone. All my Romanian friends go to Bulgaria when they don't want to spend a lot of money. That's notable because Romania is also pretty cheap. The only thing that I find that like costs a lot of money is like getting between places in Romania is like quite expensive because you have to drive pretty much. David says they don't meet the requirements for the euro quite yet. They keep trying. I mean, a lot of countries have been put in that position. I will say that like Croatia's experience of joining to the euro was that like maybe it's better overall, but one of the downsides for them as like a very tourism-based economy, which I think Bulgaria is maybe not as tourism-based, but if people are used to your country being cheap vis-a-vis the currencies, the switch to the euro eventually is going to mean that your prices are not as competitive. Yeah, I knew Romania was in the Eurozone, but they also didn't meet the requirements, did they? Wait, no, Romania is not in the Eurozone yet. They wanted to be in the Eurozone, but they're not in the Eurozone yet. They're in the EU, but they're not in the Eurozone. They still use it's not the lev. Bulgaria is the lev, but it's similar. It's like really close. Oh, come on. I feel like I have this. It's like LUI or something like that. Okay, I'm looking it up. LEU. It makes sense in my head. I did get 3 letters and starts with an L, but that's all I got. Does it also mean lion? What does LU mean? It also means lion. I think lie is how you pronounce it, but apparently in English you spell it lu. But maybe you say it lie. Do you say lie? I feel like EU gave Greece the business, threatening them to be dropped. Well, Greece threatened to take down the entire currency. Like it was so bad. Um, David, when I was there, I ended up hanging out with Israeli tourists going skiing, mostly for the food. Well, they won't be there skiing in the summer, I guess. Um, is there good, like, can you find food otherwise, or do you have to, like, hang out with Israelis and be able to find kosher food? I feel like there must, maybe not anymore. I feel like there's probably halal restaurants too, and sometimes halal is kosher. Well, kosher is always halal, but halal isn't always kosher. But um, folks I've known in the past with foreign postings have treated it two ways. As U.S. employees with negotiations and making them whole over taxes and expenses, or you quit the U.S. company or hired by the U.S. company, which is separate. Yeah. The problem is that even if you're hired by the EU company, you still have to do U.S. taxes because the U.S. taxes by citizenship. Giovanni, I mean, that's probably correct. That's so. I will try to remember. Lie is how to say that. Oh well, the Chabad house will take care of you food wise, right? That's their job. that's their main goal in life. Uh, um, read up on King Boris III, which famous historical figure may or may not have poisoned the king. Okay, I will read up on King Boris. This is very exciting. Um, all right, y'all. I have to go to this meeting soon, but one, is there anything, do we want to just talk about people's various um do people want to talk about the global economy anymore? Was my 20-minute rant long enough for you all? Or do we have to like move on from this? Dave, I feel like you should write a memoir just about your time in the Chabad house. It was me, a bunch of Israelis, and every week an old man that would try to offer me vodka and then ask why I said no, as I was a big, strong man. I think that this is quality memoir material right here. But their national currency is not euros. It's just like an accepted currency, but they do have their own national currency. Their debt is maybe denominated in euros, but one of the like key elements if you switch to a different currency, like if you're already in this situation that a lot of the like smaller currency countries will be in where they border like a much more dominant currency and or like they do a lot of trade with that. So like a great example is like in the Caribbean, a lot of those countries have their own currencies, but like US dollars are heavily used, or euros if they're like a French Caribbean island, or if they were colonized by the British, they might use pounds. But what happens a lot of the time with these smaller countries is that the real big transition, if you switch over, is that it tends to make the locals economically worse in the beginning because you have to, you then get what currency you get paid in is what determines what kind of currency a country is in. So if you switch to all domestic trade and the currency that people get paid in is in euros, you've essentially, at the moment that you switch people's currencies over, so this is like what happens for every country that switches over to the euro, there is a set point at which you are choosing the rate that you are going to convert at, and then people start getting paid in that other currency. So one of the downsides of that is, one, advantage of using multiple currencies on a day-to-day basis is that you can kind of prefer a currency based on the fluctuating exchange rate. So like the euro's been going through a lot lately. And as it's been going up and down, vis-a-vis, one other option is that you can trade to an intermediary currency. I mean, as you can see from spammy YouTube comments, that's called Forex. But a lot of people actually do make some level of money on the trade if they are working in multiple currencies, right? So, but one of the downsides that'll happen is if you don't get that right number or the ideal number, or it's not the right time in the currency swap, if you don't have it pegged, which means that like the currency is always chosen a consistent exchange rate vis-a-vis the other currency, eventually what ends up happening is that kind of erodes the buying power over time once you switch to that more dominant currency outside of the economic area. I don't know a Bulgarian accent. I couldn't tell you. I assume it's just sort of Slavic sounding, but I don't know Bulgarian at all. Oh my God. King Boris III avoided assassination at a funeral by being late because he was attending another funeral for someone who took a bullet for him in a prior assassination attempt. Wild stuff. Fuzzbubble says my rant was informative and filled with the relatable frustration of the world right now. I'm sorry it wasn't terribly actionable. I feel like I should probably next week do something that's extremely personal finance related and not about economics and macroeconomics, because I feel like there's very little that you can emerge from this in an actionable way. So maybe I can do like an overspending or couponing. I did really want to do the couponing one. The problem with the couponing one is that I still feel like I probably need an expert that does more couponing for it, and I need to find someone that is willing to come on the live stream. All the Sophia walking tours were free, except oddly, the Sophia communist tour. Okay. I am going to have to go read up on King Boris. I'm very interested in the level of chaos that's happening in this story. For no particular reason, I've been consuming a lot of content about the history of Iran lately, so which also has some crazy history. Also, I spent a bunch of time learning about the former Queen of Jordan. Anyway, I was enjoying that. Who was an American. And then she became Queen of Jordan. Giovanni asks how the bike ride was. The bike ride went great. We had like maybe 40-ish people there, I would say. I didn't actually sit down and count, but it went really well. A lot of people have done a ton of, like really phenomenal job of trying to pull out their 2005 clothes. So I had quite a few people that stacked like 5 tank tops on each other because we had all those long tank tops. A lot of statement necklaces, some good black band t-shirts. Something I thought that was really funny is the day after the ride, I then saw at the same time when I was in the mall skating, I saw a Fall Out Boy t-shirt and a what was the other one that I saw? There was one other one that I saw. I don't know. It was another like early 2000s emo band t-shirt in the same day after the ride. And I was like, what is happening in this world? Was it Dashboard Confessional? I don't know. Anyway, it was very fun. It was delightful weather. It was not 100 degrees like it was in a bunch of the country. And it was so dumb and fun. I just like, this is my like what I hope I can impart on some other people, which is just like, not everything has to be serious. And you could just do something silly because you want to do something silly. And I think it's like really hard to remember that right now when everything feels so consequential. Like the whole world feels so consequential right now. And you also feel like you need to be doing everything you possibly can be doing to, whatever thing that you feel like you can contribute to socially. But like, it's actually fun is extremely important to preventing burnout if you are like heavily involved in activism. And you also don't need an excuse. Like, you as a human need to just have fun with other humans. Like, we are social creatures, and it is okay, or just fun by yourself. But like, it is totally okay to just say, I want to do something silly. I want to have a tea party with my friends. I want to, host a MySpace bike ride where everybody dresses up like it's 2005. Like, I just literally, there doesn't have to be a reason. You can just do something because you want to do something. And it doesn't have to involve spending money. So Eric says multi-tank tops. Yeah, I remember that. Yes, it's because the jeans were so low rise. I have to say, not a fan of those jeans. If you follow me on Instagram, or I think maybe Blue Sky, but I posted a video of me getting into those jeans, and it was rough. A safe for work video, I just want to be clear. But there was a lot of, the 3% spandex was really doing its best. It was really holding it together. And when I sat down at the park on the low chair, I realized that my legs had to be straight, because if they were bent, if I was bent at 2 angles in those jeans, it was not going to work out. All right, y'all. I think you should tell me what you're looking forward to this week, and then we should head out from here. What are you looking forward to this week? What am I looking forward to this week? I have union bargaining on Thursday, but I'm not like 100% sure that I would describe that as something I'm looking forward to. I don't know. What am I looking forward to? What am I looking forward to? Oh, we're having a bargaining unit meeting, and it's going to involve free food. And so I think I am looking forward to that. Although I do think that eating tacos immediately before I have to go skate is not going to be great, but I will do a lot for free tacos. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most. We are getting closer and closer to my birthday, in which always triggers this panic in me of I need to be making more YouTube videos. So that's like what the back of my brain has been contemplating. As discussed, I'm about 90% of the way there on several videos. Aaron and I have been discussing how I can do this. Aaron's thought was that, because I know that it needs to be like a challenge and a project with public accountability for me to do it, but we haven't been able to figure out like what it is that would do it. Aaron's thought is that I need to make a tangible weekly goal, but that isn't having a published video every week, because that is clearly not sustainable with my schedule. So one of the things was that like maybe it's 4 weeks a month, and the first week is filming or scripting, the second week is filming, the third week is editing, and the fourth week is like polish and publish. And then that's still 12 videos, which is still more than I've published this year. Ooh, Eric is looking forward to a trip to Japan this week. That sounds amazing. B is looking forward to a Steam summer sale. A lot of video games go 50 to 90% off for 2 weeks. Oh, that is exciting. One of the clothing brands that I like is they're Swedish, so they always do like a really big midsummer sale, and sometimes it's like 70% off. But I've already decided I have in previous years gotten up at 1 a.m. in order to get it, because it tends to be very competitive because they're a super small brand. And I have gotten some great clothes out of that, but I am not going to buy anything. I decided I'm not going to get up at 1 a.m. I'm not going to check the website, and I just won't know what deals I missed out on, and it'll be great. Yes, Eric, you should definitely buy a bunch of sunscreen while you're there. Like all of it. Especially because I'm pretty sure we're not going to have sunscreen anymore in the United States if the uh, new Health and Human Services Secretary has anything to say about it. I have to buy a parasol and sachet around in true style, but you should also bring a ton of sunscreen back. Like, even if you aren't going to use it back home, you could absolutely sell it. Especially because the tariffs might go into effect while you're there, if it happens. I have to finish some commission soldering so I can do a lot less this weekend. I mean, that sounds great, though. Is it a keyboard or is it just general soldering? Okay. Well, so yeah, I think I'm looking forward to the free snacks. Or maybe deciding how I'm going to effectively do YouTube videos. There is this dumb part of me that says that I can't be making YouTube videos on a consistent basis until we've moved into the house. And I think that's because it's my brain trying to protect me from having to commit, because the house at this rate will never be done. So the theory is like, well, it doesn't matter. I won't change anything until I move into the house, which is also extremely silly because I clearly have a desk here that like takes up half of our living room. And I have an editing computer. There's no reason why that room would be better for it. And most of the stuff that I have to edit is travel footage where it's already there. So, ooh, David, you're on a roll selling stuff. That's awesome. I really do need to, I need to commission a keyboard from you. All right, y'all. I hope everybody has a lovely week, enjoys their trip to Japan with hopefully not too much jet lag and all of the sunscreen, and enjoys their Steam summer sale and gets great things. And building a keyboard, I mean, that's usually what David enjoys doing anyway. So I hope that's really fun. And next week, we will talk about something actionable instead of just talking about macroeconomics and uncertainty. I hope you all stay safe, stay healthy, stay hydrated. Pet a cat if you have one available, and I will see you all soon.